Hello everyone and welcome to this Careers in event, and today we will be talking about careers in the animal care and animal management sector. My name is Chris Simons, I'm a head of school at City and Islington College, and I've got with me today a panel of colleagues that have all got experience of working in the animal sector. Now we all are sat in the same room, so there'll be a little bit of passing the laptop around, so you might notice a bit of movement because I have a few technical issues today, but hopefully that won't impact on the information and guidance you can get today about careers in the animal sector. I'm going to start by passing over to my colleague Bonnie Blake, who'll give a short introduction and then give you some information about careers as a vet nurse and what a day in the life of a vet nurse would look like. Firstly, over to you, Bonnie.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today here at City and Islington College. My name's Bonnie Blake and I am a lecturer on the veterinary nursing course, which is a level 3 diploma course which consists of 1 day a week attendance at college. What I'd like to talk to you about today is veterinary nursing and the veterinary nursing profession. I myself am a veterinary nurse and extremely proud to be a veterinary nurse. I want to give you some information about being a veterinary nurse and where that can lead for you, because there's so many opportunities that you might not even be aware of. And actually, a lot of people aren't even aware of what the job really entails. So what I want to start with is, what does a veterinary nurse do? So just how you'll have a doctor and a nurse within a human hospital, we also have a doctor and a nurse within a veterinary practice. So the nurse's role is really important for patient care and for supporting the veterinary surgeon. A large proportion of our job includes anaesthesia, general nursing care, medicating patients, taking x-rays, taking bloods. So it's a really diverse role and no day is the same. So that's a huge pro for me, because I've never wanted to do an office job where you're doing the same thing every day, and veterinary nursing absolutely is not that. So I think that's a great plus for the profession. How can you become a veterinary nurse? So there's a few ways in which you can do this. One would be the degree course, which is offered at some universities in London. There's also a vocational apprenticeship, which is what we offer here at City and Islington. Both qualifications result in the same end result, and you can work interchangeably as a veterinary nurse holding a degree or holding a level 3 diploma. I have a level 3 diploma and I would not say that it's hindered my career at all. So I wanted to speak to you about different types of practice, because the practices you're most probably aware of are the ones that you've taken your own pets to. We would class these as general practitioner practices. So this is generally where you'll have a doctor that's done, a veterinary doctor that's done a lot of training, and there'll be a head nurse there that's qualified and maybe a student nurse there. And they do a lot of vaccinations, neuterings, and if your pet seems a bit unwell, maybe with vomiting, maybe with diarrhea, they'll offer some supportive treatment. If for any reason, whatever your pet presents with is out of their scope, then there's something called a referral hospital. And these are like, I like to say, so maybe you've seen the show Supervet, and that's a referral hospital. So this is where the super duper stuff's happening, where the really advanced veterinary care's happening. So that's another option. So as a veterinary nurse, you can work in a regular GP practice, but you can also go and work on a practice like Supervet or Fitzpatrick Referrals. I'm sure we've all heard of the RSPCA and the PDSA. These are charity practices. So that's also an option for once you qualify, is to be part of that, which is an amazing opportunity. It's a huge caseload. And also you're really doing something that's helping people. And helping the animals, because you're either helping owners on low incomes or animals that have been abandoned. So working for a charity is also an amazing opportunity. But actually, the role doesn't end there. So it doesn't mean that you qualify as a veterinary nurse and you stay in practice. So you could use the qualification to work for a drug company, for example, and be a drug rep. You could use the qualification to work as an insurance representative. So that is a lot more of an office-based role, but that may be what you're into. I personally have used the qualification to travel, which I'm really fortunate for. So I initially qualified back in 2008, and I left the UK shortly after that. And I was fortunate enough to work in a referral hospital in Australia. And then I moved to Kuwait in the Middle East and worked in a referral hospital there. And the most amazing thing is they've paid for your flights to get there. So you're now in a new place, a new area, which has got so many cool places to explore, and flights tend to be a lot cheaper to new places once you're somewhere else. I've also worked in India as a manager of a veterinary hospital there. I've worked for charities in Thailand and Indonesia. What I always say to people that would like to become a veterinary nurse and want to travel in the future is, if there's a veterinary practice there, or there's animals, there's got to be a veterinary practice, and therefore they need you. And we're really fortunate to qualify in the UK because we have outstanding standards which are regulated by the RCVS, which are far superior to anywhere else in the world. So as a British qualified veterinary nurse, you can work anywhere in the world. And in actual fact, you're really desired, which is quite nice, isn't it? And also there's a lot of other stuff that you can do with the qualification as well. I have done quite a lot of conservation work on game reserves in South Africa, where I worked as a supporting anaesthetist. So this is something else if you're sort of into the big animals, the lions, the elephants, the rhinos. There's also opportunities to do that as well. With veterinary nursing, there's also additional qualifications that you can do. You could, if you wanted to, do another course to go on to be a veterinary surgeon. That's not something that's ever interested me because the roles are massively different. But you can do specialist qualification. So I've got a specialist qualification just in emergency medicine because I love the adrenaline buzz of working in the ER room, in the emergency room. And I also have additional qualifications in anaesthesia because, again, that was a certain subsection of the profession, which I found really super interesting. So I really feel passionate that being a veterinary nurse is an amazing career. There's so many avenues that you can go through from just qualifying. And I think what's really important at the moment in this day and age is job security. And veterinary nursing has incredible job security. So once you're qualified and you've gained the qualification, whether that be the degree or the level 3 diploma, you are extremely desired by employers. And there's huge amounts of jobs online looking for veterinary nurses. So it's really reassuring knowing that, you know, the chances of being made redundant, the chances of being out of a job are actually really low. And I think that if you've got responsibilities, this is another reason why being a veterinary nurse is a great job, because you know you've always got a job at the end of the day. Lovely. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Bonnie, thank you for that. Really insightful. Not just a local career, but one that could take you all over the world with some amazing opportunities. So thank you for an insight into not just the day in the life of a vet nurse, but where that career could take you around the world. I'm going to hand over now to a colleague, Jess Thompson, who is going to introduce herself and give you a bit of information about careers that exist within farming and what a day in the life of a farmer or someone in the farm profession may look like.
Hi, I'm Jess Thompson. I'm a lecturer here at City Islington College, and I also have experience and still currently work on a farm part-time. So just to talk to you a bit about farming. So farming is quite a tough job. It is pretty much hands-on, full mucking out in all types of weathers. The day can start from 8 or 9 and obviously finish between 4, 5, sometimes even going on later if you have to stay. So being able to work in all weathers outside, whether it's snowing, whether it's raining, windy, etc., you just have to wrap up warm and potentially put on layers to keep yourself warm. The more you do, the more you'll keep warm, so you won't be moaning about being cold. Working on a farm, obviously cleaning is a big part of it, so you have to be able to get your hands dirty and get on with it, I suppose. You'll be working with all different types of animals, such as pigs, cows, sheep, goats, even different types of small animals, such as rabbits, guinea pigs, depending on the farm you're working on. The current farm that I work on, we do have those species, so we have to be able to handle them, restrain them, and obviously work with them safely. Feeding is a big part. Feeding has to happen in the morning, just like you like to be fed. Animals like to be fed. They don't have, they can't wait. They need to be fed at a certain time, and I'm sure they'll let you know with all the noise that they make that they are hungry. Depending on the life stage of the animal, they may be need to be fed at various times throughout the day. So you have to keep up with going back to check that they that you can provide them with food as well. As well as feeding and cleaning, which are the two main jobs, if your animal does become sick or ill, then you do have to provide them with some medication. So sometimes you may have to give them oral medication by tablets, liquid forms, or sometimes even having to provide an injection. Sometimes you may need help with providing an injection, or you have to get the vet on side, but that's another role within the farm industry as well. You can work on the farm with becoming an apprentice, so you start your way from the bottom and then you work your way up at different levels, or you can volunteer and then potentially get a job out of it as well. It just depends on what route you take. With the different levels of the farm, so there's obviously different, like level 1, level 2, level 3 for the different species, but depending on that, you'll always be working with the various different animals. Depending on what type of farm you work on as well, or you're hoping to work on, you've got your small city farms that are in London, and then you've got your large commercial farms which are not in London. But the more further abroad you go, further out you go, then you'll be working with a lot more species and a lot more animals to tend to as well. Some of the farms you could take your animals to schools or to events where you're showing the animals. So you're going on a mobile farm, and this is where you can actually showcase and educate other people about the animals that you have, which is quite useful, because obviously some children, when they're in a school, they've never seen a chicken, they've never seen a cow or even a pony or a donkey. They get to ask you questions as well. So one part of work on the farm is education as well. Depending on if it's a working farm, where does your meat come from as well. When you do take your animals on shows, you do have to ensure that you are presenting them in a good manner. This means grooming, this means washing. So you obviously have to hose them down, wash them, and just make sure that they are looking good. And sometimes they can be sold at the shows as well. The more you put in, the more you get out. Working on the farm is quite rewarding, just because you're outside, you're moving around, you're not stuck in an office, you're not stuck in an indoor building. You get to be free, and you get to handle, stroke, and work with a range of different animals that you may never get to work. You may never have worked with before, and then you can also tell your friends about working with the species as well. From a farm worker, apprentice, there's also a livestock farm. So I know my colleague was talking about vets, but obviously farm animals do need treatment as well. And then there's a livestock vet person that comes around to the farms, and if you've got a really, really sick or injured animal, then they'll have to be the one to come and provide any medication that as a farmer you can't do. And sometimes, unfortunately, it does mean staying behind after working time. So obviously an animal, if it falls sick, you can't just leave it to the next day. You do have to stay behind, and I have had to stay behind until midnight with a donkey waiting for it to poo, unfortunately. So sometimes it does happen, and then when you see the poo, you're happy because it means you can go home and your donkey hasn't got colic and the donkey's okay. So that was an example that I had to go through, just to let you know that working with animals, there's no time or day that you have to shut off and you say, okay, time to go home. Anything can happen. And I'm sure if you've got pets at home, sometimes you have to take your animals to the vet, and it is outside of 5 o'clock times, and you have to go to an emergency vet as well. That's pretty much the farming life that I can see. I can say, and just let you know, pretty much hands-on, working in all weathers, and be prepared to get down and dirty, I suppose. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jess. Get really interesting insight into the kind of careers that exist within farming. I think regardless of the profession so far, we can say whether you're a vet nurse or whether you're working on a farm, animals can be unpredictable and you have to respond to their requirements. So we looked at kind of medical careers with animals, we looked at the farming and livestock sector. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Alison, who's going to talk a little bit more about domestic animals, particularly careers that exist with working with dogs.
Thank you, Chris. Welcome all. I'm here just really to talk about dog walking and doggy daycare because that is the area that I have most expertise with. And obviously there are other elements to dog care, including dog grooming. It can be dog psychology and behaviour, which I will come to at the end. But really what I'm here to say is that with the experience that you need, starting any kind of career working with dogs is always based on skills as well as your experience, which some of you may have dogs at home, and you build from that. So if you have had your own pets, that is a really good starting point. If you want to work with dogs solely, it's to build that experience and skill set up. Multiple dogs, large breeds, small breeds, different types of breeds within the classification. So looking at bull breeds, terrier breeds, etc. It's such a good experience because each and every dog is different. And you'll understand that when you work with them more, those classic traits and behaviours that they have. Why that is important? Because as a dog walker, as a doggy daycare owner, you need to make sure that you're adhering to the regulations and the rules. So the government in the UK sets out regulations around how many dogs that you can walk at any one time in a particular area, whether you are able to walk in a public place. You will have heard recently about the XL bully breed ban, where you can walk them in a public place with a muzzle, but you're only allowed to walk one at a time. Knowing your breeds, knowing their traits and the rules and regulations is really important to any kind of work with dogs. Alongside that, you need to be licensed, you need to be insured, and you have to just make sure any local bylaws are adhered to. So what I mean by that is, if you were to go to Croydon or you were to work in Bromley, those two boroughs have completely different rules around the number of dogs that you're allowed to care for at any one time. In addition to that, your licensing, you apply to the license to get a license to the local council, and that can be from a number of different things. You don't need a license as a dog walker, but you do need a license as a doggy daycare provider, or if you want to board those dogs in your home overnight. So understanding that, the process and how much it costs to apply, because there is an annual fee, is really another aspect that you would need to be familiar with. Routes to running your own business and or becoming employed in such a business would be typically, as I said before, skills and experience, and then building that up with a level 2 minimum qualification. So lots of employers now expect students to arrive with a level 2, or they call it level 2 animal related course. So that can be animal care. It could be specifically dog grooming if you were looking at that route. But as long as it's related to animals, they can apply for a license if you're going to be employed, using that as their basis for employing you. That's the advice that I give you to get into the business. Here's a day in the life of me in my doggy daycare business or a dog walker. So one of the key things you have to do is fill out your admin. Admin is actually quite a large part because you have contracts with your clients, which means in any kind of situation, who's responsible, if it's anything from having an animal that is sick, hurt, injured, alongside if they chew something up or they've eaten something they shouldn't have, how do you deal with it? So the contract is there to protect you and also to protect the client and their dog, but it's important to have it in place and update it. So that's part of the admin. Once you've got your admin in place and that contract is there, you arrange what we call a meet and greet booking. So that's again in line with what the government sets out as a minimum expectation as a dog walker or a doggy daycare. You have a meet and greet with the dog and the client. You can do that in the home or of the client, or you can go somewhere that is neutral. So observing the dog's behaviour with you around. Do they behave differently? Are they scared or frightened of you? Are you going to get bitten if the owner isn't there? Are they going to run away from you when you let them off the lead? And obviously you'll be faced with some difficult situations. So that meet and greet assessment is really important. You are under no obligation then to make that appointment a fruition, a booking. It protects you. Once you've done your meet and greet, that is communicated and you start to make your bookings. When you're booking, you're scheduling, and your day is scheduled in blocks. It's for the clients. How long are they asking for you to look after their dog? Is it a walk? Is it a stay? Is it a boarding? And in that block, you have to factor in your lunch and or breaks, travel to pick the animal and drop off the animal back to their client home, and what that costs in terms of money. So we're looking at factoring costs of the car tax, insurance, MOT, diesel or petrol, as well as your time. It's something that sometimes has been overlooked by people that enter into this field because they're not contemplating those extra costs and they don't price match themselves well in the market, and then they don't last very long. So that is something to think about, making sure you've got your maths and your added up spreadsheets that you know for each client how much it's going to cost you before you charge them. Once you've agreed that charge and you've booked them in and you've got your plan and schedule of the day, as I said and I intimated, you need a car if you're a dog walker. Unless you're living and working solely in London by tubes and train, it is really hard to then make more money without passing that cost on to your clients. So for example, you cannot take a number of dogs onto the tube. So if you want to get from point A to point B, you'd have to walk. That's great, but then you have to factor in the time of walking from one client to the next, especially if you've got more than 2 dogs. If you drive, you can put a number of dogs into your vehicle, and then you can make that much more cost effective if you have a driving license. So please consider that as a skill set that is required, especially if you don't live in London. In addition to that, I would say, when you're costing, what is it that you should be taking out as a profit? If I've ever paid people, and I have had numerous dog walkers join with me, either freelance or employed directly, it's anywhere between 10 to 15 pounds an hour. So you can look at that and say, well, with experience and or whether they have the skills to drive a vehicle, 10 to 15 pounds an hour, is that a feasible price point for you? Progression, I would say, from there, you could go on to become a dog behaviourist. You could study to do dog behaviour, or a dog trainer and work in puppy training is a really popular element or focal point now. And then you've got dog psychiatry, believe it or not, where you're looking at poor behaviours or misdirected behaviours and how to manage that. Why do dogs behave the way they do? From this whole experience of setting up and working as doggy daycare and dog walker, I also own my own woodland. It is set up solely for working with dog owners. From the XL bully ban, it has become very popular, which is great for me, that these dog owners who struggle to walk their dogs now in a public place without lots of restriction and judgment can hire the woodland, which is a secure fenced-in space, to let their dogs off and exercise freely. So what we're looking at here is an opportunity not just for XL bullies, but dogs that are reactive, dogs that are socially fearful, or they are not well trained, so they obviously don't have great recall. And that is how we rehabilitate. We use all of these skills sets and training techniques within a secure field, or secure woodland in my case, to help develop that with dogs. Now, there's 2 elements to that from my business. One, I can offer training to do that with owners, or they can hire it from me directly to work with their dogs on their own. And that is another direction in which you could go. Business owner and diversifying into working with dogs in lots of different ways. So my final piece is, with your skills that you and your experience that you're gaining now with your own pets, build that up with education, aiming at a level 2 minimum, and try and start to think about business opportunities that might come your way when working with dogs. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Alison. We will be back with Alison shortly for some other topics, but again, really interesting to hear how a small independent business can grow and potentially lead to, a much larger business and the challenges that come with that. I forgot to mention in the excitement at the beginning that we have a question and answer function on this chat. So if you do have any questions, please post them as part of this event, and we will get around to answering them by the end of the session. There's a few that's come through already, but we'll leave it to the end for now. What we want to do really is we've shared with you the expertise we have from people within our department, but have a bit more of a general overview of some of the more maybe obscure careers or things that you can go into after studying animal care and animal management courses with us, and then give you an overview of the courses we offer, what your experience would be like as a student. So as I said, please do post your questions. If you have anything, we'll answer them before the end of the event today. But I'm going to pass back to Alison now, who's going to continue talking about the range of careers associated with animal care and animal management courses before discussing the courses that we offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So forgive me for reading from a list, but we again want to emphasise the kind of opportunities that are at different levels and different sectors. For example, zoology as a sector can lead you not just to be a zookeeper. There are things like animal technicians, primatologists. We've got animal behaviourists and herpetologists within that, but also marine biology. So if you want to go to university and study marine biology, it's not just about being a fisherman. It would be things like oceanographer. We can encompass different areas like photography and filmmaking within those sectors as well, which is really important to understand. I know that Bonnie earlier spoke about veterinary, becoming a veterinary nurse, vet surgeon and or specialist within that. So we'll move on from that, but environmental is a good one. Global warming, climate change specialist, environmentalist and a consultant, obviously ecology. But then we move on from ecology to conservation, which is a really lovely topic when you think about David Attenborough and all of the wonderful joys that he's brought to us. Charity work, animal surveying, field scientist work and photography come into that again. When we think about pet care, we've obviously covered pet dog training and pet dog grooming, but there are other things like horse, equine, care that can be anything from training to competing and sports. We also have kennels, catteries. We have agriculture, which Jess spoke about earlier. And from there, you could think of even more obscure things like beekeeping or habitat management, and gardening can come under that because we look at elements of horticulture as well. Then there's teaching. We are teachers. We teach a number of different levels here at the college, and I'm going to come on to that finally with level 1, level 2, level 3 provision at the college. Now, our level 1 course is called level 1 in animal care. It is about 80% practical. We're working at the college here in Islington, in Angel, working with over 60 different species of animals to care for them, clean for them, move, handle, check for their health. That's observed by us, your skill set, and then we look at some of the theories that go around the industry. So finding a job, seeking employment, and what is the land-based sector, what does it involve? So that is a bit more theoretical. With level 1s, we progress into our level 2 provision here. That's called the level 2 technical in animal care. On this course, it's a little less practical. I would say it's 60% practical and then 40% theoretical with 2 exams. The exams are in animal biology and animal welfare. We obviously still have our practical care of the animals, which is feeding, accommodating and moving animals, which looks at food, cleaning, health, all of the equipment. But we then also need to look at the legislations. So that's the welfare element and the exam that we have. It's important to get a real more holistic level of understanding at level 2, because when you then move up to level 3, it's much more theoretical. It's about 30% practical and again 70% written. And with that, we have subjects in the first year to the second year of that programme that are very different. There are 3 exams, 2 in the year 1, 1 in year 2. The exams are also in animal biology and welfare, but they are more at a higher level. So pitching that and understanding what level 3 is equivalent to 3 A levels over the 2 years. And on that course, you are expected to do 300 hours of work experience over the 2 years, which is 1 day a week for 2 years, 150 hours in year 1, 150 hours in year 2. Those exams, animal biology and welfare, take place in year 1, and it's a progression up from level 2. So you get to build your knowledge and understand how the exam runs. And the year 2, the third exam, is breeding and genetics. Much more sciencey in year 2. We look at biochemistry, nutrition, we look at skills within chemistry related to our animal science industry. When we have a holistic view at level 3 and that equivalence of 3 A levels, year 1 is much more practical. We look at behaviour, exotic care, we look at health, we look at practical husbandry, and then in year 2 we are looking at more sciencey subjects which will enable students, if they wish, to go to university. So that is your progression route. Universities are looking for particular grades in science subjects in our course. They're looking for merits and distinctions in animal biology and or nutrition. It's about becoming aware. Where do you start? What is involved, and where do you end? Where do you want to go? Do you want to get a job, or would you like to continue your route into uni? We're here to help. We've got a number of opportunities here, not just animal care and animal management, but as you may have heard, Bonnie brings to our department, our animal academy, part of our vet nursing team. So that's a slightly different arm. Let me explain. Vet nurses are part of the apprenticeship program here. So please be aware, if you would like to apply to that, there are rules. You have to be 18 and you have to have a placement in a vet's already before you come to us. So if you have any questions around that, please pop them in the chat. We are happy to help. And if you're not sure what entry grades and criteria you need to come on, or where you expect to get grades and what level you'd be pitched at, please ask away. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time. I'll pass you back to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Alison. So I think we can agree from the presentations today that the animal sector is a kind of a huge and diverse area that can lead to all types of jobs, from working on a farm to being, working in journalism from an animal perspective. We've had a couple of questions come through, and I think I've got Alison still with me today, so she's going to help us answer them. If you do have any, please continue to post them. They're coming through live, so we'll answer them as we go through. First one came through is, what sort of animals can I work with if I was to enrol on a course at the college?
That's a really good question. We have mammals, birds, amphibians, invertebrates, and reptiles. So we have all of the selection. We only have 4 fish, I will add that, but we have toads, newts, frogs, spiders, snakes of multiple different species. We have lizards, so reptiles. We have degus, ferrets, chickens. We have rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, rats, and temrecs, which are a type of, well, they look similar to hedgehogs, but they're a temrec. So we've got a lot of different species, and you will get to work with them, as I said, every week. You will get to work them. Once you've had your induction, you will be on duties to feed and clean and handle and move and health check. So yeah.
I think it kind of follows on to one of the other questions that's been posted, is kind of how many hours per week or how much time will I get to spend with the animals? And it kind of refers to like different levels have different exposure to the animals.
Yeah, exactly that. At level 1, we have like 80% is practical. So out of the week, which is 14 hours, I think, it's probably more than 10 hours a week you'd be spending in there working with, in some capacity, whether it's devising a new accommodation or changing their diet, all the way through from actually physically picking them up and learning how to hold them correctly. That's level 1. And then at level 2, we do look more at what we call enrichment. So it's not just about changing the environment, but understanding the impacts of that. We study them at level 2. We look at behaviour, and we will acknowledge normal and abnormal behaviours. Plus we do the normal feeding, cleaning, health checks. And then at level 3, it goes up again. We don't have as many hours. You would probably only spend, 1.5 hours a week in the animal care centre, maybe 2 hours a week in there at level 3, but that would enable you to do your studies, care and analysis At level 2, it's probably about 5 hours a week, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think Alison's answered one of the questions earlier in the presentation about work experience. So all of our students will get some form of work experience. And as you go up through the levels, that goes from more generic online work experience opportunities to hands-on working with animals in the animal sector. And it's actually stipulated in specification that students have to do lots of hours, over 100.
I really want to emphasize this. Students come onto our course and they buy into doing work experience, but the commitment behind that is really important to emphasize, because level 2 is 75 hours over the year, which equates to a 2-week block if you're familiar with doing block weeks at school. However, at level 3, as I said before, it's 150 hours in the year each year. So you do 300 in total, and that's 1 day a week. So one of the requirements that when you enroll with us is that you are looking at or already have secured a placement. So my advice to you today is go and start looking at placements. Put your CV in, talk to voluntary places, specifically farms, kennels, catteries, dog walkers, anything that's voluntary as well. So charities are really good. They are going to want you because it's voluntary care and help that they get for free, and we need it, and you'll get the skills that you need for your course. So it's really important.
Thank you, Alison. Now that is all of the questions that have come through so far. So if you have an interest in working in the animal sector and want to start your educational journey with us, please go to the college's website, look for the animal care and animal management courses and put in an application, and one of our team will interview you, give you more advice and guidance about the course and help you with your career within the animal care sector. That's everything for today. Thank you very much for your time and good luck in the future.